Lauren Du Bois-Walton. I'm one of the creators of Storytellers New Haven. Kevin Walton is my husband. The two of us together came up with this idea of using story as a way of bringing the New Haven community together so that we can know more about who lives in this community and works in this community with us. And this is our offering to the New Haven community as a way of coming together. There are 130,000 residents in the city, and there are that many plus stories. And we believe that this is an amazing place filled with amazing people. And we just don't always have the opportunity to get to hear from all of our neighbors and who's here and see each other. And we believe that when we see each other as people, then we treat each other differently and we build different types of community. And so we're thankful that you're here joining us tonight. Speaking your truth is the most powerful tool we have. And so I'm really excited to hear our two tellers today share some of their truth with us. First up is my dear friend, Ms. Kia Levey Burden. Look, people didn't know you were telling. I love it. So Kia is going to come up and share with us. Kia is the founder of a consulting company called Launch Consulting. I don't know what she's going to tell you about. Maybe you'll hear a little bit about that. She is a mom. She is a friend. She is an amazing leader in the community leadership program and a whole host of other things. Please welcome Kia Levey Burden.
So my heart is beating really fast. So I figure if I say that, maybe it'll slow down. And they gave me a mic, and there weren't mics at the other ones. So I need to say that too. All right, I'm good now. So my name is Kia Levey Burden, and I really like saying that. Burden is a newly acquired last name of mine. So I'm still basking in the newlywed glow right now. I thought a lot about what to say and what to share in story, and settled on a story that is not fully developed and that I've probably told in pieces in conversations, but this is the first time I'm going to attempt to tell it as a story. And I decided that I was going to look at this story as a love story. And I'm a hopeful romantic. I'm not a hopeless romantic. And I love Christmas time because on Hallmark Channel, there are all these like, fell in love at Christmas, met a fiance for Christmas, and like all these wonderful like happy ending stories. I love stories, and TV makes it look so good. I don't like the sad ones, like when people die at the end. I don't like those. But if it's a happy ending or if it's a comedy, like I love that stuff. And I've always loved love stories and love. And had lots of plans for my life around love from a very young age. And as I started to plan my life and think about love and relationship and marriage and how I wanted to be, I knew I always wanted to be a wife. I knew that I wanted to have wonderful relationship experiences that writers would write about and storytellers would talk about. But I knew that I'd never wanted to have children. It was not a desire of mine. I was not one of those little girls who like played with baby dolls and like couldn't wait, or imagined, being a mom. Those were not the things that I imagined. Or even as a teenager, when I would fantasize or think about what my life would be like I'd be jet setting with my husband and we'd be traveling across the world and we'd come back and share, bring back gifts and share things with people. But children were never in my imaginations. I was raised by a rock star mom. She's pretty awesome. And at the age of 30, she was a widow. And at 30 years old, she had 3 children who were not the easiest children to raise, me being the chief among them, actually. And so I, probably not in the moment, but as I got older and I reflected, I knew that I loved her for what she did for us, and I admired her and I honored her. I did not want to be her. It just looked too hard. I had 2 younger brothers that were hard-headed and they never listened, and we fought all the time. I was, whiny and emotional and rebellious, and I had a really, really bad smart mouth. And I just couldn't imagine having to deal with that. And we grew up in some pretty tumultuous times. I think when she was married, and I won't tell her story, but before she became a widow, life was rough. And I thought, I think I'm good on this motherhood thing. And I was good. And I love kids. Let me say this. I love children. I am the best auntie, godmommy, play big sister that you will ever meet. And anybody whose children know me, they know. Like, I keep all the secrets. I am the vault when they can't tell their parents. It's like, Auntie, can I just tell you this? And so, like, I love kids. But I knew that I didn't want any of my own. And life progressed, and I was okay with that, and I was making plans and making goals and living life. I went away to college, and about my sophomore year in college was in my first real long-term serious relationship. I was a sophomore, and he was a senior. He was getting ready to graduate, and we were making really long-term life plans in a really big way. We had a real big plan. And at the second semester in my sophomore year of college, at 19 years old, I got pregnant. And I found myself at a crossroads that every 19-year-old should be at when they find themselves pregnant at a crossroads. But mine was further complicated by the fact that I really knew that I didn't want children. And I was torn. I was torn between, at the time, this love of my life and all the plans that we were making. And he had a plan, like, I'm graduating and I'm about to get a job and there's student family housing and we can do this. And I was like, I don't want to do this. And had to make a really, really hard decision, and one of the hardest decisions I had to ever make in my life, and ended the pregnancy. As a result, ended my relationship, and left the school that I was attending in North Carolina and came back home. I needed to leave that story, that experience, that decision. I needed to leave that down there. I didn't tell anybody for a long time why I came home. I literally packed up my bags, and when I would normally come home for the summer break, and I had told my mother, I'm not going back. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, so, and I had no plan. I didn't know where else, I had no plan. I just knew I wasn't going back to North Carolina. And I hadn't told her for many, I didn't tell her till I was well and good, an adult actually. But she knew that there was something. And she said that something in her told her don't press it. And so she knew that if I had made that decision, that it was one that I hadn't really thought about. And so life began again. Life, and I was still on the same trajectory. And I figured out school and finished school and graduated and started building a life. I became an adult and built a life. And at the age of 26, found myself in another long-term, really serious relationship, and got married. And in preparation for that, was really clear, hey, we're in love, we're gonna get married, I don't want children. And I need you to be okay with that. And there's a lot of talking about this in the preparation for that. And at the time, he was like, great. And I had really painted this picture of this amazing life, right? We don't need children. We'll be great aunties and uncles. We'll be great godparents. We'll go to Spain and bring our godchildren back gifts. We'll tell them stories. We'll have sleepovers. We'll be like those people that they love to come spend the time with. And look at all the money we'll save, and childcare costs, and college education. We can invest that money. We can bless other people. We both love children. We, did a lot of youth programming. We are both in ministry and ran youth programs through our church. Loved children, but I needed him to agree that we weren't going to have any children, and he agreed. And then 3-4 years into the relationship, other friends who were married and having children, and life was progressing. He started to say, well, can we revisit this conversation? And I was like, sure, let's have a conversation. I can assure you that my mind is not going to change on this. And we had a conversation, and some of them were kind and compassionate, and some of them were not so kind or compassionate. And it was a really rough time. And I spent a lot of time just trying to explain, like, listen, like, I've seen the hardship of this. I've seen how difficult this can be. I am a child of some significant hardships that I don't want to put another child through. And and these were all of my perspectives and views at the time. They were so real to me and so tangible for me. And things got difficult. And I got careless with my birth control, which I was never careless with. And I got pregnant. And I was like, crap. And I cried. And I knew it. I knew it before I even took a test. I knew it before I got it. I knew it. And I cried for like 2 days. And I didn't tell anybody. And then I took a test, and it confirmed what I already knew. And then I cried some more before I could figure out what to do. I knew that I wasn't willing to make the same decision I had made at this point 10 years before, or 10 years prior. But I was at this crossroads again, and I was a different person, right? I was a real adult as a person. I was close to 30. I've been married almost 4 years at this point. I understood the vows that I took, and they were meaningful to me, and so, right, for better or worse, and through sickness and health, and it was no longer about just me. And so I sort of acquiesced to the pregnancy, and I started to tell people, and people were really excited. They were congratulating me, and it was so wonderful for them, and it was not so wonderful for me. I never mustered up to that feeling of being excited about it. I had a really hard pregnancy emotionally. I spent a lot of time depressed during my pregnancy. I was mean. I don't know if anybody in this room knew me, and thank God if no, maybe not. Okay, I can't think, oh, you knew me when I was pregnant. I was mean. It just, there was no pleasing me, there was no consoling me. I was cranky all the time. And that's the only way I knew how to deal with it. And, and I wasn't happy about it, and then I was mean, and there were things happening in my marriage, and this was, what was the storm we just had? A bomb cycle? Is that what they called it? So there was a bomb cyclone, right? So there was this bomb cyclone that was happening in my life. As the storm kept moving, it kept gaining strength. So there was everything that could have happened was really happening. But I very dutifully went through it. And health-wise, I was fine, right? My kid was fine. As much as I was trying to muster up something, health-wise, my body was fine. I was adjusting. He was healthy. And then I went into labor. And then I was like, this is really about to happen, right? And I didn't know what to expect. I did not go to a birthing class. I did not go to a Lamaze class. I was not investing any time in this foolishness. I was like, so this baby's gonna come if I don't go to these classes, if I do go to these classes. I don't wanna be around happy pregnant mothers. I don't wanna be around anybody rubbing my belly. And I didn't do any of that stuff. So I showed up at the hospital, and I was like, so my water broke. They tell me I'm a couple of centimeters dilated. What do I do next? And things happen. I had a baby. I don't need to tell that part of the story. And then, right? And so here's the part of the really good movies, the good ones, where everything happens and it's the happy ending. So then, all of this stuff changes, and I have this baby, and this baby's amazing, and it was all the things that I never knew I wanted, and I was so conflicted about not ever wanting this baby, and then here this baby is, and he's everything. He's gorgeous, and he smells good, and he's just fun to watch. And I can spend my entire day watching him. And I remember coming home, and my mother had people on cycles coming to sit with me when I was on maternity leave, and my grandmother came, and I was just holding him. And grandmother from the South, they said, girl, don't hold that baby, you're gonna spoil him, or, all these other things that there's no evidence for. And she says, I was like, well, so I was like, where's the evidence for that, right? He spent almost 10 months inside of me, everything says that you should have like touch and skin to skin and attachment. So where's the evidence for it? She's like, oh my God, you new age mothers, just whatever. And all I wanted to do was hold him, and he was a good baby. He slept through the night really, really early, and he wasn't colicky, and he never had an ear infection. And like, I was like, this is great. What was I worried about? This is awesome. And then when he turned about 6 months old, as much as I was adjusting to motherhood and all the joy I couldn't find before, it was suddenly emerging and bursting, and I was full of it. There were other things in my life that were not so easily being repaired. And so as I was growing in love as a mother, I was falling out of love in my marriage. And as was my husband at the time. And things got really, really bad. And at about when Seth was 6 months old, he decided he didn't want to be married anymore. And he didn't want to be married, he didn't want to work on it, he was done, life was dissatisfied, and that was his choice to make. And then I got mad again, because this is why I didn't want to be a mother. Because if I had signed up to be a single mother, then I would have never ever had, and that's what I was more angry about. Not that he was cheating on me, not that he wanted to leave the marriage, that he made me a single mother, and I had done that already, and I had lived through that, and I was not interested in doing that again. And so all the things started to come back of all the reasons that I had decided that I didn't want to be a mom. But there was a new addition to that. But now I actually had a baby, and he was life to me, and he was joy to me. And so how could I not want him? And there was so much. Shame is not even really the right word, but it's the one that comes to mind around being a single mother, right? So here you have, this black woman who's a single mother. And I was like, I don't want to be that. I wanted to be everything but that. Things I couldn't do because I didn't have childcare, and things I needed to, I just didn't want to be that. I didn't want that label. I didn't want that stigma, and it was a challenge for me to live into that. But this is a love story, and I loved him so much that I had to be the mom that he deserved, and I never wanted him to know that I was a mom who didn't really want any babies at all. And so I had to figure out how to love him in spite of what I knew I didn't want to do, and I felt like nobody was loving us at the moment. And and I did, and I have, and I'm the mom of a 10-year-old who'll be 11 next month, who is just as tall as I am, who wears a size 9.5 men's shoe at 10 years old, who memorizes lyrics to Michael Jackson songs and plays them incessantly on YouTube every single morning, who needs to listen to audiobooks when he goes to sleep, who loves dinosaurs and Pokemon, and has decided that he wants to be a gangster rapper. That's what he told me last. So, maybe, we'll see. I was like, well, as long as you're owning the rights to your music and writing for other people, like, go for it. Because that's where the money is. And I've learned to love motherhood, right? It's sort of actually become a little bit of my identity now in a weird way. I embrace single motherhood. I started a ministry for single mothers at my church. I started looking at the stories of mothers and the stories that go untold and the things that we have to carry that nobody knows. And this is not to discount fathers at all. I know good fathers, and Seth has a good father. But being a mother is my story, and loving him has taught me how to love in a way that the movies I love so much don't show. They don't talk about this kind of love. For as much as he is amazing, he's a child that I have to love because right now, at this point in his life, nobody else seems to be loving him in the way that I think he should be loved. As much as I think my son is the sunshine and the moon, he's also my son that, 2 months ago, his school decided it was a good idea to call the police on him and handcuff him and escort him out of his school because he doesn't show up in the world the way other people do all the time. You know, I read Facebook posts of moms whose kids are, you know, gymnastic champs and they're honor roll students and they are excelling at, you know, Pee Wee football. And my kid's been getting suspended since he was in kindergarten. And so loving him has taught me how to really, really love, because I have to love him when it's really, really hard. I have to love him when I'm not feeling good about the kind of mother that I am. You know, I think often, if I wasn't so adamant about not being a mother, if I wasn't so adamant about all the things that I didn't want to have him experience, then maybe we wouldn't be experiencing these things. Seth is bright, and he's smart, and he is funny, and I named him Seth on purpose. His name is biblical, and he was the son of Adam and Eve, and after all the turmoil with Cain and Abel, then emerged Seth as their son. He was God's promise to Adam and Eve, and he was my promise. And his name is Seth Michael Levey, very on purpose, because on paper his name gives him advantages that people won't give him if they see him first as this really tall, really big little black boy. And at the same time, you know, he shows up in the world in a way that, you know, doesn't always suit people. You know, he's an emotional kid, and things bother him at his core. And he's a kid who's sensitive about things, and he doesn't always have the right words to say. And sometimes his frustration shows up in words, and these wonderful code words that we have given our little black boys, like aggressive, and out of control, and disruptive, and behavioral problems, calling him everything but the name that I gave him. And being his mom is the best thing that I can do. And sometimes I have to sit with him, and he doesn't know why he's like this. And I have to tell him, you're not bad, and you're not a problem, and you're not a behavioral issue. That's not the name I gave you. Your name is Seth Michael Levey, and you're God's promise. And so, you know, my love story marches on. You know, it is one that I'm living in, and there is always a happy ending, because I get to love him, and I get to raise him, and I get to pour into him, and I get to be his shield and his rear guard. I get to tell people how to treat him, and I get to tell him that despite the challenges that he's experiencing right now, it doesn't make him any less than any other little boy who looks like him or who doesn't look like him. And that's a love that I didn't know that I had the capacity to give. I didn't know that. That's not the love that I see in the movies. I don't watch those movies, the ones that make you cry and that have the really sad endings. I don't like those movies. But this love story makes me cry sometimes. You know, this love story makes me lonely sometimes. This love story makes me feel unfit sometimes. I want more for him, but he's my love story. And you know, my name is Kia Levey Burden, and that's my love story.